What happens at a festival stays at a festival. Great to see you. I'm really excited to be here today. And I see that my time is already running, so let's get started. So, my name is Daniel, and today I'm going to talk about why a sustainable future begins with mindful self-leadership. But before we get into the topic, I would like to tell you a little story about myself. So, 10 years ago, when I was around 30, I moved to Berlin, and I was really in love with this vibrant city. I was in love with the fast-paced startup environment, and at the same time, I had some health problems. And one day I came home from work. It was a very tough week, and it was like someone hit me on the head, and I fell on my knees, and I lost my hearing. And then my hearing came back together with a tinnitus. Some of you might know that. And a week later, I found out that this is a stress-induced hearing loss. So this moment was really shocking for me, as you can imagine. It was alarming. But at the same time, I'm super grateful because it marked the beginning of my search for hearing now, as I call it. So I realized that most of the time I'm with my thoughts in the past or the future, that I don't really have a connection to myself, to my body, to my emotions, to my intuition. And this reminded me that I have to change something, especially when I want to stay in Berlin and enjoy the city. So I started my search for here now, and it brought me to wonderful places. I did yoga on Bali. I was at a monastery doing a Zen meditation, a mindfulness course in Kyoto, and I learned more and more about myself and about the art of being in the moment. And then I decided to become a coach, to give my experience to others and to share. And then I met Dr. Rieber, and we founded together Revolve, and now we're supporting a lot of organizations to become more human-centered, human-oriented. So, a few months ago, and you already mentioned it, Flo, I put out a book, the first book that I wrote, and it's about mindfulness, self-leadership, and the inner compass. And I was really excited about it and wanted to publish it. So I called a friend of mine who's here today, Alex. And Alex works for a podcast called New Work Stories. And he said, hey, it's a great idea, I will read it. I'm on a travel right now, but I will read it and then we can interview for release. So let me tell you two things about Alex. The first thing is, last year he read 100 books. It was like a challenge. So when I sent him the PM, I was like, oh shit, you will compare my book with 100 other books from last year. The other thing is, Alex, also coming from the startup space, quit his job a year ago, bought a Jeep, and together with his girlfriend Anne, who's now his wife, started a mission to Mars. So a mission to document and help the wetlands, because the wetlands are really important for fighting climate change. And when he was reading my book, he was traveling 45,000 kilometers from Canada down to the Antarctica. And I was thinking, what an idiot I am. I'm writing a book about mindfulness and sending it to him. He's really trying to have an impact, right? So then something interesting happened. We had the interview, it went quite well, and after the interview we stayed online and talked a little bit, and he said that he's thankful for the book because it reminded him to be more present, more in the here and now. He said to me that he was at the most beautiful place that you can imagine, but always in a rush, always thinking about the next destination, always checking tasks. And that, he forgot about being in the moment and really enjoying the experience. So before we had this talk, at the same day, he was at a beautiful lake near the Antarctica, and just spent a few moments there, not thinking about anything, not having any intention, and really enjoyed it. So what we talked about in this chat was that we do need activism, we do need politicians, we do need structural change, but we also need inner change. We also need mindfulness. And this is why I think that a sustainable future begins with mindful self-leadership. I would like to tell you what, from my point of view, mindful self-leadership is and why it is so important. So mindfulness is this wonderful ability to be in the present moment, not thinking about the past or the future. It's the ability to live from moment to moment with an attitude of openness and curiosity, but also of kindness towards others. So this is the first ingredient. The second is self-leadership. Self-leadership means that you know about your values, that you have a clear vision of a positive future, and that you can lead yourself step by step towards this mission or this vision. And the third ingredient, and I think this is very important, is the inner compass. The inner compass is another word for our intuition, another word for our inner wisdom. Because I believe that we all know what is good for us. We all know what is good for the world, we just forgot about it. And we forgot about it because we are living in crazy times. We're living in a world where you orient on your bank account, on your career level, and we all believe in growth, in unlimited growth, so we want to be higher, faster, further. The thing is that we start to realize that the resources on this planet are limited, and we start to realize that having more doesn't mean we are more happy. You can ask the millionaires, they are not as happy as you think. So, this is something we have to be aware of. So we are in times of growth, but we don't have limited resources. And we are also in times of stress, of constant stress. And I read a lot of studies and a lot from neuroscientists, and they show that it's very difficult to make wise decisions when you are in stress mode. It's very difficult to be innovative, to be creative when you're in stress mode, and I think this is most alarming, it's really, really difficult to be empathetic with yourself and others when you are in stress mode. So we have to get out of the stress mode, this constant rush that we're in. So our brain works in two systems. The first system, system one, is the system where we have an unconscious reaction. It's a great system because we can be very fast and we can save our brain capacity, and our brains love saving energy. So this is what we do most of the time. There's impact and we unconsciously react. But there's also system two. System two means that we can use the full capacity of our brain, also of our emotional intelligence, of our intuition, and come up with new ways to solve problems. And this happens in milliseconds between stimulus and response. And there's this wonderful quote that some of you might know from Viktor Frankl, survivor of a concentration camp and psychologist, and he says, between stimulus and response there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. I believe that mindful self-leadership helps us to widen this little window of time so that we can more be conscious, do more conscious reactions. Also, it helps us to reduce our stress level and to reconnect to our intuition, to our empathy, and to our wisdom. And there are a lot of studies out there. This is one study that we did at Evolve. So we worked with 17 teams, and before and after our program, we asked them a few parameters, and we came up with an uplift that we have more focus, we have better stress regulation, we have better empathy and growth mindset. And growth mindset means seeing the positive things in change and so on. It doesn't mean we have to make more money. Yeah. So this is, I think, very clear. So this is why I think that a sustainable future begins with mindful self-leadership. The question is, does it end there? I think absolutely not. It's not just about yourself, it's not about just changing how you see the world and how you act. It's also about the culture, it's about the structures. And I really love this 4 quadrants from Ken Wilber and Frederick Laloux in Reinvented Organizations, because it shows that we have to work on all 4 quadrants. The thing is, when we just work on the mindset, this will lead to frustration, because we have conscious minds in an old world. If we just change the structures, this will lead to overwhelm, because we have old thinkers in a new world. So we have to work on all 4 quadrants together to have a real sustainable future. Most of you know the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, founded by the UN. And there are also the inner development goals. And IDG means that we have to do inner development to reach the sustainable development. My mic is doing some problems, right? Okay, but I just continue because of the time. So we have to work on our relationship to ourselves. We have to work on our empathy. We have to work on the ability to co-create and to work together. Thank you. So inner development is needed for sustainable development. And I was very good in time, so I'm coming to my last slide. And this is a quote from Albert Einstein that you might have read. And Albert Einstein says, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So we have to rethink our thinking right now. Thank you.